Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will be starting shortly. We will be starting shortly. Just hang in there. We're just working on a few things, and we should be starting in a few minutes' time. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. We should be starting shortly. Can you try and see if you can present now? Yes, I think there's something coming up. All right, all right. Yeah, thank you. Maybe you can put it um, on yes, yes, okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate it, and thank you very much, Dudu, for agreeing to share your work with us. So we are quite happy today to have to be presenting to us on a very interesting topic. So let me quickly introduce our speaker today. Duduzile Dlamini is a PhD candidate in gender studies at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And her research focuses on race and gender transformation in the leadership landscape in African higher education. And she also serves as a journalism and lecturer at the University of the Free State. Dudu is deeply passionate about community development and actively engages in collaborative work with a lot of young people in various communities. And her interests include the media, music, critical conversations, exploring innovative and future-oriented practices. So we are quite happy to have Dudu to share her work with us today. So without further ado, let me allow Dudu to get us started.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, let me see my camera. Okay, there we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this invite. Truly, truly appreciate it. Yeah, so yes, as the
Sorry,
introduction.
Dudu. I think you are sharing the screen and the slides as well. I think it should be that side.
Okay, so
Yes, perfect.
okay, let's do this.
Really?
Are you able to see the slides?
No, and yeah, not at the moment, but just a few minutes ago, your slides were displayed.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
Are we
something
winning?
is coming up now. Yes, yes, something is coming up. Yes, maybe you can put them on a slideshow. Yes.
Okay. Are you able to view?
Yes, yes, perfect. It's
Okay.
perfect now.
Happiness. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. So this is my first publication of many. I wrote this paper last year, and it was out of a lot of consuming YouTube and consuming television, where I thought to myself, I cannot just consume and not give back to literature and scholarship, because these are some of the things that I'm intentional about what I consume, be it television, radio, be it the print industry. I just always say I need to have output out of this. I'm not just consuming for the sake of consuming, but we need scholarship after consuming that content. So the title of this paper is See Me and Hear Me, a Black South African woman using YouTube as a site of belonging and visibility. Okay, so before actually I start, I'd just like an ice break before we even begin. So any of you through the comment section or just raising your hand, let me know if you can identify any international talk show that you know of that has been produced, presented internationally. Do you know any international talk show? You can just raise your hand or say something on the comment section so that I get a sense of where you're at in terms of consuming television shows. Anyone, just one person or two, then we can move. Any international talk show that you know of? Yes,
show, Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah.
Yes.
Absolutely, the Oprah Winfrey Show, great stuff. Okay, and then in the continent, do you know any talk show in the continent, in the African continent? Any talk show that you know of? Anyone? So in the continent, we've got 54 countries. Any talk show that you know of? Okay, let's exclude South Africa from this part. Just one response, then we might move. I guess that I don't know also count for something, but I need a response. Any African talk show
Yes.
that you know of? Yes, SG.
In the chat, there's a response on SABC Real Talk. Wendy Williams, I think that should be international.
Yes, that's international.
Yeah. Then there's Real Talk. Used to be on SABC 3.
Yes. So yeah, that's in South Africa. And I said, let's try exclude South Africa. Any of the African countries that we have, let's exclude South Africa from this instance. Any talk show that you know of. Can you please check on the chat box for me, Simba, because I don't have access.
Yes, someone is saying Maichi Samba, which is a Zimbabwean talk show.
Absolutely, Maichi Samba. Yes.
Then
okay.
There's Asula, the conversation capital by Asula.
So we're talking mainstream at the moment. We haven't gone to the digital space. Mainstream. But okay, I think there's a sense we're getting somewhere. We spoke of international, continental, and as well as national talk shows that we have, which is great that we do have a bit of insight of what is happening. So yeah. So just to introduce the study as we go on further to actually discuss what the rationale is behind this scholarship. So when we think about historically, when we think about during the years of colonialism and apartheid, there was a lot of invisibility where women are concerned. So there was silence, erasure, and just the scramble of Africa. And women were actually affected more than any other gender, and especially Black women. And this happened all across the board in the political sphere, economically, as well as in the media space. And that's where we actually saw the erasure of women on television. And this has a lot to do with who owns the media, right? This question is quite prevalent when it comes to media ownership, to say when you own the media, you actually have the voice, the power, and you have the hegemony to be heard more than any other person. So you've got the actual political power to be heard, and also just all of these ideas that are coming from advertisers, directors, writers, and producers are stemmed from their own political positioning, to say who are they in terms of age, race, gender, and also just their class speaks to it. So that's what I was interrogating, to say just historically, we saw that media ownership was in the hands predominantly of white male. And right now, when we see with the Constitution, just the enactment of democracy, we've seen just that idea of having access to leadership position in various spaces, including the media, even though it's still contested, that idea of ownership. Just the other day, I was hearing a journalist saying that they do not have female editors in their newsroom, even though predominantly the newsroom is occupied by female journalists. So where are they when it comes to leadership and also being the voice in the forefront in terms of the content that goes out? So that's also one of the issues that is taking place in the media landscape and in television in various spaces. So for me to actually conduct this particular study, it's based on that idea of the declining number of locally produced talk shows in South African mainstream, right? And mainstream, I'm not talking about the internet space or the digital landscape as yet. We are going to get into it, but I'm talking about television. When it comes to the public broadcaster and also commercial television, we've seen less number of talk shows, and we know the importance of talk shows in South Africa, because the media is there to inform, educate, and entertain. So it is important for all this content to actually come out in various media platforms, because we want pluralism, that idea of various voices in various spaces, because we are a diverse country such as South Africa, and we need the diverse content in various spaces. So we haven't been seeing that a lot, and that's why I was asking that question, to say what is the latest, or not even the latest, but what can you identify any talk show in South African mainstream media, because of that idea that there has been a great decline when it comes to what we are seeing on television. And I've been consuming a lot of YouTube, right? And as I'm consuming YouTube, I see that there's been a proliferation of YouTube talk channels, right? And these talk shows are actually developed by Black South African women for Black South African audiences, right? So I wanted to see that, okay, now that we're having a decline of talk shows on television, and we're seeing a rise of talk shows on YouTube, what is the difference, and what is the rationale, and what is the engagement from the audience now that they're getting that particular content? Because obviously when you are creating content, there should be appetite, right? And that appetite will be visible in terms of consumption, in terms of the people that are actually liking, commenting, and engaging with the content. So I was really interested to see the Black lens in the digital space when they are creating content on YouTube, which is talk shows based on what they know previously in South African history of television talk shows and what they are creating in contemporary times. And I'm going to share those findings with you. Okay, so always important to go back to literature because history informs current realities. So it's always important for us to go back to the basics and actually get a sense of what was happening then and what is happening now. So one of the reasons why Africans are at the epicenter of the decolonial project is because we have been unseen and unheard for centuries, right? And we see that through television, who is on screen. When we look at the credit list, who is producing, who is directing, and because of just how the system was, colonialism and apartheid, it was exclusionary. It was really about erasure. And we saw the disposition of Africans when it comes to their mind, land, resources, culture, spirituality, and dignity. And all of these perpetuated contemporary studies or contemporary media scholars to actually have a different conversation around what do we then represent, or how do we represent ourselves now that we are unshackled from all these legacies that have been in place for a long time. So when we saw the rise of democracy, when we saw people occupying, Black people, men and women occupying leadership spaces in media, in the media fraternity, there was a lot of excitement and debate around how the camera will be used, especially by women when they are directing, when they are producing, excuse me, and when they are the casting directors. So what kind of impact and social change do they bring about? So I just wanted to examine the social, political, and the cultural location, because like I said previously, the South is political. So whoever you are, it translates in your work. So it mirrors who you are because your identity stemmed from where you grew up, the schools that you went to, people you engage with, you interact with. It all has an effect in the way in which you produce your work. So when you also think about storytellers, one of the things that they say predominantly when being asked, why did you create this play? They would say, what inspired this play rather? They would say, my surroundings, where I grew up, my culture, because the South is political. Even though you're going to represent it in the media landscape, it will still be form of entertainment, but there'll also be a reflection of society. And also it evokes and provokes that question, who is the media reflecting? Does the media reflect society, or does society reflect the media? This is an ongoing question. And for me, I always say it's a dance between the two, because when you think about the people that are curating the media content that we are consuming, they come from communities and they're reflecting what is happening in communities, and also what is in the media is also reflected in society as well. So so the way I would then engage with that, it's a dance between the two parties. So more than anything, it was just this excitement, seeing women using the camera now, seeing women directing, producing. It was a great sight to see, to say what kind of change are they going to bring. And that's why I'm so I always say to people, don't say a cameraman, because that is not the case. It's not always the case. A camera person, because we also need to change our linguistic around positions in society, because we are almost saying that's the status quo. We're reinforcing those stereotypical gender roles in our society. So read the credit list as much as possible when you're watching anything, so that you can see who actually created the content that you're consuming. So it's human beings, right, that
Sorry, dude, I think you frozen briefly. Sorry, maybe we've just lost Dudu just. Let me try to see if we can get Dudu back. Just let me know if you have also lost the presenter.
Yes, it's frozen.
It's frozen, right?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Let's try to get her back. Sorry about that. Sorry, yeah, thank you very much. I'm trying to get the presenter back. Just bear with us for a few minutes. Yes, Dudu, are you back? I think you got
Where
booted
did you
out.
lose me? Oh my
Yes, we lost
goodness.
you. We lost you, and happy that you're back now.
Where did you lose me?
Yeah, no, I think you were talking about the context and how the context matters in the way in which we produce and also the importance of the linguistic aspects of referring to, let's say, a person as a camera person or a cameraman. I think that's where we lost you. You froze a little bit and then got booted out.
Okay. Are you
Yeah.
able still to see the slides?
No, we lost the slides as well. We lost the slides as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All
Now we
right.
can see your slides. Yes. Go.
Okay. Um, okay. So I was referring to the male and female gaze on television, that idea that media representation has the power to actually change the status quo or reinforce orthodox practices. And this goes back again to media ownership, who owns the media. Because if we have a diverse media system or diverse media landscape, we are then able to have different kinds of representation, especially for South Africa, which is such a diverse country that needs plurality of representation in different ways. So we need to have different people in the newsroom, different people in the media space that will actually offer us alternative content. Because if we're having the same people occupying the same positions, it means that there'll be reinforcement of certain practices. So we need to actually change the status quo because things are changing each and every day. Therefore, what we're consuming should reflect exactly that. And I used the film feminist Laura Mulvey's theory of the gaze when it comes to television. So the male gaze and the female gaze, right? So essentially, the male gaze it is content that is aesthetically created for sexual pleasure for male audiences, and this is created by media practitioners. These are male media practitioners creating content that is of sexual pleasure for their male audiences, and it also speaks to who is directing, who is producing, who is coming up with script as well, because that's where you see the ideology coming into space and even the aesthetics of it. And this is not just only on television. We also see this in music videos. We also see this, excuse me, we see this in gaming, we see this in music videos, and in films, where there is this constant reproduction of the colonial gaze, which is just the representation of the female body that is sexualized. We think of music videos where women are not actually dressed and the males are dressed, and you think about what is the rationale behind it, right? And you think about ads as well, where it's an advert about a car, but we're seeing women who are in skimpy outfits. You only realize at the end that it's actually a car ad where they are splashing water on the ad. And you also think about who is actually behind the camera, behind the lens, when it comes to creating this production and commissioning it to go on television, right? And this also goes back to the political sphere in student politics. So for my honors degree, I was looking at the representation and participation of EFF female politicians, EFF student command politicians at UJ. And I was talking about just the way in which they're represented and the way in which they participate. And some of the participants were saying to me, we're given shirts and we have to dress them in a certain way for us to lure voters and attract voters to come and vote for a political party, right? And I'm saying, is this only for women only? Like, yes, males, they just continue being themselves, they can wear whatever, but the females need to wear short shorts, they need to wear their crop tops, or make the crop top of the political party's t-shirt in order to lure in. And obviously that is concerning at an higher education institution if these practices are still being reinforced. And also go back to what are we seeing in different media spaces, and what are we seeing from other political parties that have been in power for so long. So just when you think about the male gaze, it goes throughout when it comes to our society in the media, and it also transmitted through our social interactions as well. And that is why post-colonial feminist work is introducing the female gaze. So the female gaze, it is a way of reimagining different futures and different ways of thinking and seeing man and woman on our television screens. So we're seeing a more dignified way of representing man and woman in film, in television, just by the representation of women who are on screen. So you think about Insecure, that is produced by Issa Rae, and you think about Entangled, that is also produced by Hopano, who's also female in South Africa, and you look into the way in which the sex scenes are produced, they're directed, you can get a sense that there is so they've introduced a sex therapist in their scenes because of just how contested sexuality is in South Africa, and just in the media landscape, to say, how do we then go about it to represent man and woman respectfully with dignity as well in our screens. And we see that through different institutional cultures that are reinforced by the new demographic or staff demographic in the media landscape, who are introducing these channels to us as well. So the female gaze is really, really important, and it is a way actually that is then saying want women to be represented differently. So women are then saying they are tired of being represented as home nurturers, survivors of social ills, poor, weak, dispossessed, and sexual objects, but actually they are men and women who are moving with times, who want to be reimagined and be seen in a different way. So the female gaze is a response to the male gaze. The female gaze troubles the patriarchal, sexist, racist, and classist representation of women in different or various genre on television. So, and that's where I then took this theoretical framework to say, on YouTube, now that we are seeing different producers and directors and presenters, what are they bringing into the fore as the female gaze? What is it that is different than what we've seen before? So before I go to the findings, I'm just going to go through a quick brief on South African history of talk shows, right? So just like local and international talk shows, South African talk shows originate from Radio Current Affairs show. So the very first TV show that, the talk show that we had in South Africa, it can be traced back to the Felicia Mabuza Satchel show, which was produced in 1992, and it aired on SABC1. So this show was really, really important, especially post-apartheid South Africa, because these interviews and the content that were discussed, or the discussions, facilitated social cohesion. So some of the most prominent figures that they've been interviewed on the Felicia Mabuza Satchel show is Kenneth Kaunda, Julius Nyerere, and Nelson Mandela. And that was really great credibility for South Africa to actually engage with these political figures at a very important and critical time in South Africa. So the talk show, what it then did, it paved way for the next generation of television talk shows in South Africa. And that's when we saw Take 5. I don't know if any of us or any of you remember Take 5, which was a popular youth-based talk show on SABC1. So the show really tackled youth-based challenges, and not just tackling the issues, but also offering pragmatic solutions for these issues. And we saw also just in the early 2000s as well, there was also a lot of discourse around healing, because it was just post-apartheid South Africa, so there was just a lot that needed to be unpacked in different phases. And this part, it was really about gearing towards healing and the interest of confession and testimony. That's when we saw programs like Relate, Nyan Nyan, Khumbule Ekhaya, Forgive and Forget. And this is where the participants would publicly confess their secret on camera, or they would seek reconciliation with their loved ones. So all these shows that I'm talking about are not on air at the moment, except for Khumbule Ekhaya, which remains one of SABC's flagship program. So Relate, Nyan Nyan, Forgive and Forget, they're not on our screen. Take 5 is not on our screen at the moment. And thereafter, in 2003, we saw productions as well of other talk shows. So Carol Bauer, who is a media mogul, produced Motswako. So Motswako played on SABC2, which was the longest running program. So the production was female-centric, dealing with socio-political and cultural issues that South African women faced. So these issues would include HIV and AIDS, gender inequalities, and politics, and they would combine these topics weekly with fashion, art, women empowerment, and the show was presented in Sesotho only. Some of the presenters that were there was Penny Lebiana, Mapaseka Mukwele, and they spoke Sesotho only throughout. So, however, despite the success of the show, it ended in 2022 after 21 seasons. And like I said, this was the longest running talk show on SABC2. And thereafter, there was no talk shows that we're seeing on TV. And and then again on SABC3 in the 2000s, again, we saw Urban Brew producing a talk show, which was 3 Talk. So it was hosted by Nolene Maholanesanyo. The show was a primetime daily lifestyle show that covered topics from entertainment, sports, music, and books, health, crime, abuse, politics, just targeting diverse South African audiences. And it was one of the most elite flagship shows on SABC3 when SABC3 was still SABC3, and it had a lot of viewership. And the audience also got a chance to participate on the show, where sometimes Nolene would have live audience in studio. If not the live audience in studio, there would be comments via SMS or call-ins. And this was before the dawn of social media. So this is also just participation element of talk shows at the time. So that's what they were using. Excuse me. And the show ended. And what's really important about TV is eyeballs. So if there are no eyeballs, then there are no advertisers. If there are no advertisers, then the station cannot operate. Therefore, they need eyeballs. And eyeballs refers to the people that are actually watching the content. So if we are not watching, then it means the ratings are low. When the ratings are low, there are no advertisers. They need to close down at some point, as we'll see with other productions, because that's where they were headed to, because of that idea of low ratings. That's why I'm saying audience participation or audience engagement scholarship is super, super important, because you cannot create content without thinking about who's going to consume it, and sustainably so. In 2013, we also saw Catch It With Kanye, which was produced by Endemol. It was aired on ETV. It was celebrity-centered format TV show. And it was the first season was shot in Nambita Restaurant in Vilakazi Street, and the second season was shot at Orlando Stadium. And the success of the show saw it being nominated for a SAFTA for Best Talk Show. Regardless of the success, after 3 seasons, it ended. And again, ETV started also catching on to talk shows. They also introduced Exe and Exe's Wagala on ETV. So these were issues that were faced by young people. So you can say it was contemporary Take 5 in 2015. So whether it actually tackling young people's lived experiences about politics, crime, alcoholism, navigating social relationships, and also having segments where they'll speak to people on the streets discussing about the topic in studio. And the Orchid Moving Picture production only aired for 3 seasons, and thereafter we never got to see it on our television screen. And while we were actually looking into this introduction of talk shows on television, we also saw the rise of late night talk shows, right? And late night talk shows emerged in South Africa in 1999. And our very first late night show, it was the Fat Joe Show. So it was an entertainment show that features various segments such as comedy, music, movie reviews, and political satire. The show was aired on ETV initially, and then it moved to SABC1 from 2001 until 2005. And we then saw another introduction of late nights with Humutso. So Humutso Mutsunyane on SABC2. And this was our very first Black female late night talk show host. So she's a filmmaker, a broadcaster, and the show was filmed with a live audience, celebrity guests, and a live band. So the show actually was aired on SABC2 for 3 seasons, and it ended. And I actually haven't seen any other late night show hosted by a Black female host or produced by one, but you can engage me as well at the end and let me know if I'm missing out on anything. And the last introduction of our late night shows in South Africa, it was the late night with Loyiso Gola, who is a comedian. So it started airing in 2010 on ETV. So the parody and talk show satire featured Black comedians who were commenting on current affairs. They used humor to expose power inequality and the lack of political progress post-apartheid South Africa. And the show was a success. It was nominated internationally internationally for Emmy Awards in consecutive years. And even though it was successful in 2015, the show was cancelled after 11 seasons, following a creative disagreement between the production as well as the channel. And that's where we saw the end of the late night. And we also note, it's also noteworthy to mention the late night with Nimrod Nkosi and the late night with Tim Modise on Soweto TV, which I haven't seen in a while as well. So I'm open also for that chat if you've seen any late night TV shows, be it in the public broadcaster or in any of the pay channels, but I haven't seen any of them. So that's the trajectory that we're at when it comes to late night TV shows, and that can also be some scholarship of some sort. And then currently, when it comes to talk shows on our TV screens, we had Real Talk with Anele in July 2016. It also did well, and it covered wide array topics. And one might also say it was a contemporary talk show of Nolene Maulanesambu in terms of the content that was driven on the show. So the success of the show, even though it was also nominated for SAFTA Awards for the best talk show host, for the best talk show rather, the success was short-lived after reports came out that the Department of Social Development had paid 500,000 to appear on the show. So when the story came out, excuse me, when the story came out, there was a lot of disagreement around the lack of ethics when it comes to the way in which they conducted themselves, because there's less loss of credibility and there was less viewership, and the show initially ended, even though they tried to revamp it. Even though they tried to actually revamp the show to say that we're going to have a different presenter, which was Azania Musaka, it still did not work out because they had lost their credibility and people did not want to watch the show because of the breach of the editorial policies that were put in place by the SABC. So the show has since been cancelled. And in 2021, we also saw the introduction of DSTV's Honey channel. And they also had a talk show, which was called The Buzz, also presented by Anela Mdota and other three Pan-African women who were discussing various issues. It was also a Sistoli segment. Sistoli, you think of it on drum. So where you'd write in that you have a problem about ABC and Sistoli advises you, but this was happening on our screen where someone would write in on the show and say, this is my issue. They would read the problem in segments, in 3 segments, and all 4 ladies in a round table would give advice. And then at the end of the show, they would give the final verdict that this is what I think you should do. So we also just see the intersection of the media playing out in various spaces. So that was just going back to that idea of the media landscape, the mainstream landscape, and now the digital Black feminism. So this is the praxis that is taking effect right now, where it is a practice that it's also a practice and scholarship that archives, publishes, and engages on feminist thought. So it focuses on the way in which Black women tell stories, how they tell stories, which tools are they using to tell stories, and also because of the digital migration, there's different ways to tell stories and different platforms to tell stories. So people choose which e-communities are they going to use. Is it YouTube? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it Facebook? Is it blogging? So there's different sides of where you want to connect with various other Black women who look like you, who think like you as well. So for me, I chose YouTube as a site because there's just a wide array of scholarship in different online communities. Audience participation, really, really important, even in the digital space, because you're able to then see if people are engaging with your content. How do you see that? Are they liking? Are they watching the ads? Are they commenting? The number of views, and that's when you actually see that there is engagement. And cherry on top is social change. Once you're able to have impact on the audience in which you're imparting this content to, that is even a greater achievement. So it's really, really important, again, to think about audience participation in any space, be it mainstream, be it on the digital space. There needs to be audience participation, because if there is no audience participation, then there is no relevance to the content in which you are producing. Okay, so the research design. So this is a qualitative study. It was a virtual ethnography study where I fully immersed myself on these YouTube channels that I have selected. So these YouTube channels that I looked at that are produced for and by Black women, it is Wellness and Wisdom, The Conversation Capital, Moments with Mounsui, and Convos and Cocktails, as well as Let's Talk with Corsi. So what I then did is fully immerse myself in the YouTube channels. So what I then did, it was just watching all 4 of these YouTube channels. I immerse myself in this digital cultures and practices of each talk show channel. I live streamed them, downloaded them on YouTube, and in a chronological order, I viewed them from when the channel started until the latest, which was last year when I was conducting this research, doing the virtual ethnography. And what I then collected is just observing the content of the show, the guest appearances, the production process, the audience participation, by looking at the number of views, comments, likes, and dislikes on each videos of, the 5 channels from January 2023 until March 2024. That's what I then did in terms of data collection, and in terms of data analysis, it was content analysis, where I was actually analyzing the content, which is the comments, the comments, the likes, as well as the visual representation, which, like I said, the guest appearance, the content of the show, as well as the process, and just the participatory element of it all. So it was really important for me to use this because it offered new, rich, and robust ways of studying audiovisual media and communication. So, all right, so these are the shows. I'm not too sure if we still have enough time, but I'll just show them here. So this is the conversation. Let's start with wisdom and wellness. Yeah, so this is the YouTube channel that was founded by Mpumi Dwaba in 2016. The show focuses on inspiring and equipping and encouraging its audiences with a holistic approach of living. The channel embodies faith and feminist futuristic values with overarching themes that includes representation of African women. Their topics ranges from motherhood, fatherhood, beauty, faith, business, wellness, leisure, finance, and they've got various guests. So this is the channel. And then we also have the Conversation Capital. The Conversation Capital was first aired in 2022. It was founded by Yusula Muriani, who is a lecturer as well in the academic space, a voiceover artist. And she founded this with content producer Bonga Bota and technical director Given Masimela. And the show is doing really, really well. So it largely focuses on current social political issues in South Africa, where they speak about various issues such as cohabitation, surrogacy, fertility, unemployment, depression, masculinity, diversity, sex, health, and the show is still ongoing even now. and is doing really, really good. And then we also have, what is this other show? We've got Moments with Mountsie. Let me just see if I'm able to see Moments with Mountsie. Moments with Mountsie. So Mountsie Pout is also, she was also on YFM. She is a content director and a television writer. She founded this YouTube talk show in 2022. The show is celebrity interview orientated, capturing and documenting South African celebrities upbringing, life experiences, and career trajectories. Some of the celebrities that have been interviewed on the shows are actors, musicians, film directors, as well as radio presenters as well. And then we also have Let's Talk with Corsi. Let's Talk with Corsi is actually Convos and Cocktails, which is actually presented by, it's presented, Convos and Cocktails presented by Lesego Tlhabi, who's an author and a comedian. She's also an actress and a digital content creator. So the show was launched in 2023. It focuses on meaningful feminist conversation for South African women in post-African feminist era. Some of the topics that are being interrogated on the show includes sex, sexuality, body surgery, relationships, blended families. They have sexologists as well as parents, celebrities as guests who appear on the show. The show is also doing quite well. It's been a while since she posted anything, but if you still want to consume the content, it is available, even though she hasn't released anything of late. But the power of archiving brings us that opportunity where we're able to actually have these shows, even though they're not produced at the moment. And then the last one is Let's Talk with Corsi. So Let's Talk with Corsi, it's with Makosazana, Makosazana Zikubu, who is a seasoned journalist, and she is also a former magazine editor for True Love magazine, and she is a media practitioner. She is a media practitioner, and she actually discusses various issues that are meaningful with impact. And we also see some of the guests that she had. It was television producers, authors, models, and reality TV stars as well. So the show also hasn't been aired in a while. However, because of archiving, we're still able to actually view the content. So my findings, what did I find from all these YouTube channels after consuming them? Because initially the question was, why are they creating these YouTube channels? And because there's this decline of talk shows on television, we're now seeing YouTube being a replacement of television talk shows. So what are they bringing into the space that is different? And also, what is the audience's reaction to the content in which they are providing? And also, how does it drive the feminist thought in contemporary times? So these were the findings. So I found that YouTube has become a replacement for television for many young women. And that's why they are actually engaging with the content that they are seeing on YouTube. Like I said, all these channels that I looked at, Moments with Mounts, Convos and Cocktails, Let's Talk with Corsi, as well as a Conversation Capital and Wisdom and Wellness, they are doing really, really well, where they have over 100 subscribers. I mean, just now, my findings are from last year. So even if we can go on these channels, it has gone even more, just the number of views, the number of people that have been actually viewing the show. So you can see also with just Wisdom and Wellness at the time, the channel had 300 subscribers and over 300 million views. And that was last year. So you can imagine right now. And for me, I was interested to say, what is this content that they're creating? And what is the audience saying with this content? And how is it relevant when it comes to the discussion of contemporary realities of South African women. So the first emerging finding that I got is that they are building these spaces. So they are building a feminist digital space. So according to the Conversation Capital, mainstream talk shows lack meaningful and impactful conversations. So that's why they created this channel. While Mountsu Pout says she started her YouTube channel because feminist work is hardly documented in the digital space, which of course the digital space is a new site and we do need archiving there. And she saw a niche, and then she actually executed this by having her own talk show, which is celebrity orientated, archiving celebrities' stories, their current landscape, and also just their upbringing, which is really, really important when it comes to archiving. While they also, well, when it comes to Let's Talk with Corsi, she says that it offers, the reason why she actually started the channel is to offer South Africans alternative content with interviews with influential Black women who occupy positions in traditional male-dominated industries. So for us to have different outlook of different women in current landscape, because we're always seeing the same representation of Black women, like I said previously, where they're survivors of social ills, where they are dispossessed, they're marginalized, they're excluded. And Kosi then said, I want a different kind of representation, because we do have powerful Black women who are in powerful positions, and we need to have those conversations. And not to say we shouldn't have other conversations, we need to have conversations that are both looking in different lights, the negative and the positive, because if we're only looking at the negative, then we have a single story. So we need to have a holistic representation of Black women in contemporary times. When it comes to Lesego Tlhabi, the Convos and Cocktails, she says that she founded her YouTube channel because she's been trying to break into the mainstream media for the longest of time, and she was rejected because she did not meet the beauty standards of television. So she decided to do her own thing, which is the beauty again of the digital space of being able to create your own content and have your own audiences. So the top-down approach in the media landscape is now in this point in time, because you're able to then have different conversations with different types of women in the space. So again, when it comes to these channels, all of them, when you look at them, they are creative, they're robust, and providing innovative feminist conversations that are really, really necessary in today's world. So all 5 channels were created with the intention of building safe digital feminist spaces as a response to mainstream media of the poor portrayal of Black women. So it is clear that these channels are intentionally creating feminist digital spaces that are encouraging, empowering, and are impactful. So all these candid post-feminism conversations, from education, wealth, freedom, intersectionality, female pleasure, abortion, family planning, surgery, love, career, and motherhood, are really, really important conversations in current realities of South African women who are obtaining qualifications, leading organizations, and have families, and are maintaining their identities. So all these YouTube channels are developed and produced with a female gaze, and as a result, the content is feminist and futuristic driven, focusing on changing the status quo and preserving the feminist digital communities with care and integrity, while also advocating for social justice online and offline. And then just the other 2 findings before I conclude: audience participation. Audience participation was also found to be really, really important, even in the digital space. So just like television, the success of YouTube channels is based on audience participation. The 5 YouTube channels have received positive feedback with many YouTubers, with many YouTube users rather, experiencing nostalgia with previous talk shows that they've watched on TV, seeing something that is almost similar to what they know. There was another comment on the Conversation Capital where someone says, "This show reminds me of Three Talk with Nolene Maulana." So you see that nostalgia coming into place. And someone else was saying, Boom is definitely our own Oprah Winfrey, which speaks to that nostalgia and just appreciation of this content moving from mainstream into the digital space, and also in a creative and multidimensional way. So the success of YouTube channels is viewer engagement, and also just using social media as trailers to attract viewers. Like even with mainstream, they'd use trailers for you to watch the next show, but now with the digital landscape, they are using other strategies, such as social media, where they will have like clips on TikTok, on Instagram, where you're able to see what's coming up next. Also just the engagement. So the YouTube content creators, they have the opportunity of responding, ignoring, deleting, or blocking comments. So the connection is immediately, unlike television, where you'd have to write in or email or call in. But now with the digital space, it is immediately, you can see. So without an audience, the content is insignificant and it loses its social, political, and economic impact. So it's really, really important to have an audience that is consuming your content, and the bigger picture, having social change, having an impact on this particular audience that you are serving. So the last finding, it was turning passion into profit. So like we saw, they didn't really start this to make money, because mainstream, the media is there to generate profit. That's what they're there to do. They're not just here to inform, educate, and entertain, even though these are underlining values in the journalism realm, but essentially it is a money-driven institution. However, with these content creators, for them, it was really turning passion into profit. Profit came later. It was unexpected. They were not really there to make profit. So Bumili Dwaba also was saying that when she began the channel, it was to offer healthy representation of the Black community. So financial success was never a priority when she began this digital journey, but she embraced the YouTube financial model. And she is a millionaire based on YouTube, the money that she's making. So the profit came in based on passion. She was not there to make the money, but it came through the passion that she had. Even with Wisdom and Wellness, not Wisdom and Wellness, the Conversation Capital, they were not there to monetize their content. It was never part of their strategic plan. The rationale was really to contribute to meaningful social discourse. But they've also embraced the financial aid, where they also now being monetized their ads on their channel, and people are watching all the time. So even with Moments with Mounty, Convos and Cocktails, as well as Let's Talk with Corsi, they are passion projects, and they only commodified their craft at a later stage. However, it was never their primary focus. It was really about social change. So they have now monetized their channels. So yeah, essentially with the work that I've done, I would say that this is important work when it comes to talk shows, when it comes to the representation of women in various spaces from mainstream and moving into the digital sphere. So the argument really that I am making is that Black women also need to be in this space, right? And when we are seeing the female gaze, we see it as an act of self-empowerment that actually illustrates women's autonomy when it comes to storytelling and self-actualization. So all these 5 YouTube channels, they are different but progressive in terms of the representation of South African women 30 years after democracy. These channels are important virtual communities for Black women to denounce and debunk traditionally racist and sensationalist and sexist representation. So the digital spaces, it offers an opportunity where women's identities are restored to survive and flourish in a society that was historically and sometimes is hostile to them. So the study actually presents unique opportunities for Black women to enable them to be writers, producers, and directors who contribute to the digital political economy in contemporary times. I will pause here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dudu, for this very fascinating work that you are doing, and a fascinating presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I think it foregrounds a lot of interesting things about agency, about resistance, especially with this kind of patriarchal, capitalist structure of the media in many African countries, but even other countries as well, and how these women are creating sort of new counter publics, if I would say that sort of challenge this hegemonic representation of women that have persisted for quite a long time. This is a very timely and very important talk that you have just shared with us. So let me quickly open this up for questions, comments. I know there must be a lot of questions and comments. I think if you can check on the chat as well, I think there's some people that were sharing their reflections there. But let me open this up for questions and comments, maybe before I read anything that I get in the chat. Any questions, comments from the floor? Yeah, yes, I see Tamuka. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Duduzile, for such a very thought-provoking and timely discussion. I think I've learned a lot, and I think it has also, invoked some thoughts. Myself coming from Zimbabwe, where social media, expression is criminalized. I just couldn't, hold back but think about social media and living in contemporary times. So my question is, how do young Black women in South Africa, and also in contexts like Zimbabwe, where digital dissent is criminalized, use social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube as spaces of becoming and political expression, where performances of beauty, pleasure, and critique negotiate visibility, gendered precarity, and the state anxieties about power, morality, and control? That's my question. I hope you have captured it.
Thanks, Tamuka. I don't do. Is it okay if we can take maybe 2-3 questions, then we allow you to respond? Josephine, go ahead. I see your hand.
Thank you to Duduzile for the insightful presentation. Had some nostalgia thinking about the programs that I used to watch a long time ago. I used to enjoy Mutswako a lot. Here is my, before I ask you, I just want to say I totally agree with most of the findings from your paper, given that you find in today's world, young people, they actually affected a lot by social media. You see, with some of it leaning towards depression and all that. This is a crucial study that you are conducting. Here is my question: if I were to conduct a similar study, or some of my students might want to conduct a study similar to yours. Take me through the ethical considerations regarding this virtual ethnography. Did you seek for permission? How did you navigate the ethics issues? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Samambo, go ahead, in Kiza. I think we'll take those questions and then allow Dudu to respond.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Dudu, for your presentation. It was very insightful and I learned a lot. The question I have is, we have a channel in South Africa called Moja Love, and was started by Black women, African women. And I believe when they started it, they had shows which were empowering and inspiring. African shows, but as you said, Dudu, it's all about the eyeballs, right? So apparently majority of us don't want to see good things about us. So they were on the verge of closing that channel, and then they had to switch up their model and show all things messy, essentially. And then it's sort of like, then what happens when you start a channel to uplift and empower the Black community, but no one wants to see that, and you have to switch it up and show all the bad things about the Black community in order to get the eyeballs, to get the sponsors for the channel to be viable. So what do we do about that? Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that question. Dudu, I think let me allow you to respond, and then the next round I would start maybe reading from the chat and then allow colleagues to ask a few more questions as well. You're muted. You're muted, Dudu.
Okay. Thank you so much for all the questions. So the first one, I'll go with the ethical consideration, right? I mean, of course, online research is quite contested method at the moment. So research with human participants, it requires you to have informed consent. However, with YouTube, it is in the public domain. And even their slogan, it says a video sharing platform that encourages users to broadcast themselves. So I used a method which is called lurking, where you are participating virtually. So you are actually part of the community, you are observing, and you're part of this virtual network. So there was no consent essentially that I needed from YouTube or the people on the site, but just because of the terms and conditions of YouTube that it comes up with, that idea that it is a video sharing platform and that broadcast yourself, it gave leeway for the research to be conducted as a desktop study than it would have been if actually I included human beings where I interviewed them. Then it was going to be a different way to navigate the ethics. But because of their terms and conditions, their slogan, and also just the study of lurking, you can just look at lurking. It is a theory, it is a methodology of immersing yourself in the digital space. So autoethnography, essentially. So that's what I did. So even though I did not get actual consent, there was also that idea of planning and executing the study with care and also with ethics, just with the feminist ethics of care. It was driven, and also just respecting the site on its own with their own terms and conditions. So the desktop study is a blessing in that way, that you don't have to go through institutions to get ethical clearance. So just look into the lurking methodology, which is our way of collecting data. So there's been extensive research on it because of just the idea of having more online research that is taking place. And also when it comes to how do African women represent themselves within the diaspora, and also just looking at the digital space when it comes to the way in which the political economy is centered around censorship right now. How do they still continue to tell stories? So they're using different ways. When I was in Maputo last year, I was speaking to feminists who are using the digital space in various ways, where they've got their own language that they are using on social media that is understood across their platforms. is one way in which they're still communicating messages that are empowering, that is also representing who they are, the self, pleasure, and just empowerment. And they are using social media, they are using different spaces where they are using language. So language is a commodity, essentially, when they are organizing, galvanizing with different women across the continent. And I mean, it's not a good idea when we are seeing the censorship, especially in the digital space, because it's still an untapped industry that's not regulated. In South Africa, it's still not regulated. Therefore, that's why a lot of people would opt for social media for representation instead of the top-up approach in the mainstream sector. So that idea of policymakers also needs to come into space where we talk about regulation, where we talk about how do we have this conversation that is outside of the confinements of censorship, especially in the digital landscape. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, a lot of scholarship that needs to be invested in that particular topic. And it's really, really important because we do need media freedom at the end of the day, all of us in the diaspora. And the question by Dr. Zamambo with regard to empowering and inspiring content and using Moja Love as a case study. I watched Moja Love when it started. I remember watching the channel. They did not have any ads, none whatsoever. And I felt so sorry for them. I'm like, oh my goodness, when are they going to get ads? Because I am a media person, so I'm always invested to say they need to start making money. And before they make money, they need to have audience. They need to have us to watch. So what they need to do is produce content. So with Moja Love, it is locally produced content. They don't have any international content that they're buying. Maybe, for example, buying a film or movie from any other international media houses. They locally produce their own. So when it started ground up, they were producing these shows that they had on their show, right? And as they're producing these shows, it was really dramas that they started with. It was dramas that they were producing. That's the genesis of Moja Love. And people started watching bit by bit, and you start seeing ads. And when the ads started coming in, that's when you started seeing the sensational shows, the Moja Loves coming into place, right? I mean, the Uyajola 99 coming into place. We started seeing inverted comma trash TV on Moja Love, and it gained traction where people actually wanted to watch the show. And I mean, there's a good debate around trash show when it comes to Moja Love, right? It's that the way in which it is represented, right? And also the authenticity or the truth, the underlying truth of it all, of the reality that is happening. Because when you look into the society that they are serving, you can see the LSM. So these are people that are able to pay DSTV for you to have access to Moja Love, right? So there's class there. And then we know already it is for Black people and Black all-inclusive when it comes to colored Indians, because we also see them in shows like X-Repo. We see them in different shows, right? So that is the demographic. And the people that are owning the show, it is Black females, and also the chairman is a Black man, right? So we see that there's the closeness when it comes to the content and the people that are delivering the content, but the manner in which it is delivered, right? So that is a lot of question. And even with Uyajola 99, just now, the presenter was, I think the production, not just the presenter, because he didn't go there on his own, there was a lawsuit of 2 million of invasion of privacy, right? And the conversation that we're also having with friends when it comes to Moja Love and the shows that they're doing, especially at Uyajola 99, they're very specific with the type of household that they go to, right? They know that chances are there won't be any, there won't be any charges against them, or they won't have these ethical dynamics that they would have in other states where it includes other class systems and other people as well. So it might be impactful, it might be for social change, right? However, the approach of it all, and just again, it's the audience reception, because even though it could be the way in which it's represented, it could be terrible, but if the audience is still paying, still watching, then the adverts are still generated, and it means that they are watching, because the day it closes down, that's when we see that there's no appetite. But the more we have advertisers, the more the show or the channel is still on production, it means that there's an appetite. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't change the way in which it's represented. And that's where the diversity comes into place, into the office, into the media landscape, where we've got different types of epistemic bodies, as well as beings that are actually driving the decisions when it comes to the content. So it's really about how do we then package this content? What is the reaction from the audiences, and how do we constantly make these changes? Because us seeing it being on air, it doesn't necessarily make it the universal truth that it should be represented in this way. It should be represented in different ways, even though people are benefiting from legal fees. So you think about other shows like where they've got immigrants that are here illegally, they take them out, they deploy them back to their countries, which is also cleaning up the country. You find shows like Ex-Repo again, where people, they've been exploited, they help them get their goods back. You've got reconciliation shows like Mama Zala. So all of them, and also dating shows like, I'm not too sure about the name now, but there's a dating show on Moja Love, which is comical. Essentially, people are meant to find love, but it's comical while others do find love. So it's really issues on the ground that are taking place. It's there to empower, but essentially they're also there to make money as Moja Love. And the more we watch, it's an endorsement of some sort. And of course, change does need to happen.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dudu, for your response. Yeah, I think we also have quite a number of questions on the chat. But maybe before I go to that, I just want to pick on what you highlighted, and I think it's something that was also reflected even in your presentation. This idea of viewers and engagement is important. So I wanted to hear from you, especially looking at these YouTube channels, for the women that create these spaces. How do they navigate the tension of self-representation, and also the platform's commercial and algorithmic imperatives? Given that there's this idea of making money, but there's this also the idea of self-representation. So in what way do they negotiate that tension between self-representation and also the platform's commercial and algorithmic imperatives that may maybe compel them to prioritize maybe things such as sensationalism, or maybe hypervisibility, or even some kind of stereotypical content that allows them to get viewers, get followers and shares and stuff like that. So that's my question. But let me quickly go to the chat as well. I think there are some questions there. Let me quickly scroll down. I think there are quite a number of questions. I would start with thank you for this interesting presentation. I came late. Can you please share? Okay. No, that's a comment. No, we'll share the recording. Thank you for your interesting presentation. I just want to ask, what role do you think indigenous languages and cultural references play in how these women articulate belonging and visibility online? Also, I'm interested in how you understand belonging and visibility. Not sure if you touched on that, but do you see them as emotional, political, or representational practices? I think that's an interesting question from Sisipo there. Then PVC saying, in your literature, You touched on women being sexualized in media platforms. What are your thoughts on women sexualizing themselves or talk about sexual content that push ideologies such as your body, your choice, these days, especially on social media platforms that also include YouTube to some extent? Would you say it's a byproduct of the male gaze or a form of resistance in a way to the male gaze? Let me try to read the last one. This one is coming from Kashego. Do you think young women in South Africa are becoming more aware of the effects of the male gaze, and how are they responding or challenging it? And would you say some women who seem to enjoy or participate in these portrayals might not view the male gaze as a problem? And how does that influence the overall conversation about gender representation? Some women seem to enjoy or willingly participate in the kinds of portrayals influenced by the male gaze, for example, through fashion, through social media, or through entertainment. How should we understand that? Should it be seen as a result of the male gaze or as women taking control of how they want to be seen? Because sometimes it feels like we only blame men, even when women are also shape or enjoy these portrayals. So do that think, let me allow you to respond to that. And then I see if there are in the chat, in the chat, I'll read them out in the next round. Okay, Betha, go ahead. I see your hand. Have we lost Dudu again?
Have we? Oh no.
I'm not sure.
It looks like we have.
Okay, no, let me allow her back. We can start with your question when she's back. Hopefully she was able to hear the other questions.
Oh my goodness, I've missed maybe 3 or so. I got kicked out. So sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine, dude. I think let's start with Betha, and then I'll allow you to respond to the questions that you had, and I'll try to read out the other questions as well.
Okay.
Hi, Dudu. Thank you so much for your presentation. Very insightful, very powerful, and it's nice to see you again. I wanted to ask, do all the women identify as feminists, and do they see their channels as pushing a feminist agenda? And then I also wanted to ask whether, like, how are you thinking around the idea of the digital divide? That, you know, with YouTube, especially because it's quite pricey in terms of consuming YouTube. So, like, for me, it seems like there's only a few people that can actually, it's more middle class or emerging middle class, or maybe students who have access to Wi-Fi on campuses and stuff like that. So how about, you know, the working class women? So what are we saying in terms of digital feminism, in terms of that digital divide and the movement, you know, and the potential of it reproducing these class divisions? And then also, I think it also falls into the other question around that idea that, yes, it started off as a passion project, but then there is that element that emerged later on of that commodification and then profiting out of it. And then how do they grapple between that two, you know? Because some of them, I think, are influencers. I think Bumi is also an influencer. So it's also that idea of
pushing sort of like that consumption culture, and at the same time, you know, pushing for that wellness. But I think even within that wellness, it's also embedded within this very capitalist values, you know. I'm very like wary about it, like so yeah, how are you thinking around these ideas?
Yes, I don't know if you want me to read out some of the questions in the chat,
Yes,
or
please.
maybe you want to respond to that, and then I'll try to read some of the questions in the chat.
Okay, let me attempt to answer these that I have, and then we'll have the other round of the chats.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll start with the question around, do the women identify themselves as feminist? Not too sure if they do. However, the content is feministic, futuristic driven. In terms of the guests that they are selecting, in terms of the topics that they are having, and the conversation itself, it is feministic orientated, or feministic it's feministic orientated. That's what it is. The content is, the presenters themselves, or the producers, the directors in the YouTube channels may not necessarily identify themselves as feminists, but the work in which they are doing through the guests that you are having and the topics that you're having, they are going to give, they are going to present theoretical and practical framework that is feminist inclusive. And also because the presenters, not even the presenters, but the guests are usually Black feminists. So it does also launch into the show itself and the content itself. So I've never heard any of them say it out loud that they are Black feminists, but the content definitely is. Even the engagement on the comments, it also signals that mirroring of the feministic engagement on the content. And the digital divide, very, very important, especially in the diaspora. We have the digital divide, and the have and the have not is a big thing, and especially for women, even a bigger deal, because the most unemployed. Also, just thinking about the pay gap, women are still severely underrepresented in position of power, and they're not earning as much as men. And also it plays a part into the digital space, how they engage, how long and which platform, right? And of course, the last thing that we want is having that idea of perpetuating classism when it comes to feminism, that these sites are only for belonging for people in a certain class. People have Wi-Fi, people are able to buy data, then they can actually access this content, engage on it. So what then needs to happen is again, when it comes to the regulation, right? When it comes to the digital divide, to say, where do we actually ensure that young people have access to Wi-Fi in their communities, right? And not just access itself, we need access. We also need the know-how, right? You also need to have the digital literacy, and also the language that is being used in these sites as well also needs to be understood. So the reaching out should not just be on the social media platforms, but also on the ground, because we also want to speak to young people who have these social media sites to say, how do we then engage in primary school, high schools, communities around? How do we have access to Wi-Fi in certain period of time? And how do we have these conversations building in all these sites? Because all these sites are important. Not everyone is in these sites. I know for me, I'm just on YouTube and Instagram, and I'm sure other researchers are looking at TikTok, X, looking at Facebook, right? And it's because these sites are all important, all differently, and people have access to it differently. And because, like you said, with YouTube expensive, like the live streaming, and you've got others where they've got they've got other options where it's not so expensive as others. So we need a robust collective conversation practices where we say, how do we then ensure that everyone has access to the digital space? And after access, the literacy of using this digital space, and finally the languages, the know-how. How do we then understand the language, and how do we then impact that into our own society every day? So we really have to have these conversations around the digital divide, because it's still ongoing. Even with service providers, they've attempted some ways of arrangement for the digital, to curb the digital divide, but it still hasn't been to a place where it should, because we need to get to a point where people have the smart phone and have the connection, the digital connection, and also have the language and the impact at the end of the day. So the passion and profit conversation. With the YouTube channel that I looked at, I think one that I could say is really, really commercialized is Mpumuli Dwaba's channel, Wellness and Wisdom, because there's a lot of paid partnership on the YouTube channel from different medical aids, from different brands. Dove would also have a segment there. I mean, I also don't want to say the advertisers and give them more publicity, but there's a lot of paid partnership. And I think she is navigating it in a way with the alignment of the brand. So for example, she's have a paid partnership with Dove, and then the topic maybe of the day should invite Zozibini Tunzi would have conversation about beauty in contemporary times. So even though it's still commercialized, there's still alignment to what the show or the brand is about. So I think that's how she plays around it. But we as consumers, people who are consuming the content, we can see the commercialization of it all. And she does also specify that it is paid content. With the other channels, I haven't seen any paid content. I mean, paid partnership. They still very independent in terms of how they operate. But with Wellness and Wisdom, they are really, really commercially driven, because they even have they meet outside the platforms where she would have Wellness and Wisdom events. People pay for ticket prices, even though there was contested around the pricing of the tickets, but people actually do go. It sells out. They've got phenomenal guests that go there. I haven't been to those events, but that's also one way of them pushing the profit beyond the platform of YouTube. So with other channels, they've been independent. They've just maybe relied on ads. I haven't even heard of them like encouraging people to say, please don't skip the ads, or please watch the ads. I've never heard them say that. So they're still passion driven. So yeah, I think that in that way, they're able to navigate the terrain of putting forward the passion, and also just social change, social justice, and also just maintaining this commercialization aspect of it. So with Mpumuli Dwaba, I think she's able to align herself with her brand and the content, and it's able to merge in beautifully without you seeing that this is actually capitalism at play.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tutu. I think this is the last round. I will just read through the chat. There's Faith who is saying, thank you so much for the presentation. I wanted to find out how you navigated ethics of ethnography. You indicated you made use of digital ethnography as your design. So how then did you navigate the ethical issues? I think that's probably part of what you addressed earlier on. Then the other question, did you manage to get to understand why the talk show presenters chose YouTube specifically for their talk shows and not other media outlets such as Twitch, for example? Then thanks for the interesting presentation and timely theme. How have you navigated virtual ethics? So I think that's the second question on ethics, and I think you have addressed that. Then I think this is another question. I had read it out before. Do you think women in South Africa are becoming more aware of the effects of the male gaze, and how are they responding to or challenging it? Godfrey, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Dudu, for the presentation. Very interesting. So I wanted to know how the YouTube site is understood as a space by this category of women. Is it a space of contestation? Is it a space of engagement? So I think that is my question around YouTube as a space, with the variabilities in terms of understanding the ways in which they engage in particular socialities, but what it means to them, these women. So thank you.
Thank you, Godfrey. Let me I think also add, this is still Kahlego's question about this young South African women, and she's also saying, would you say that some women who seem to enjoy or participate in these portrayals might not view the male gaze as a problem? And how does that influence the overall conversation about gender representation? Some women seem to enjoy or willingly participate in the kinds of portrayals influenced by the male gaze, for example, through fashion, social media, or entertainment. How do we understand that? Should it be still seen as a result of male gaze, or women taking control of how they want to be seen? Because sometimes it feels like we only blame men, even when women also shape or enjoy these portrayals. That's Kathego's question. Then Sisipo's question: thank you for this interesting presentation. I just want to ask, what role do you think indigenous languages and cultural references play in how these women articulate belonging and visibility online? And also interested in how you understand belonging and visibility. I'm not sure you touched on that, but do you see them as emotional, political, or representational practices? So I think this will be our last round, Dudu. You can respond to those questions.
Okay. Sure. Thank you so much for the engagement on the comment section. I can tell that we all had a good time just with the engagement. Okay, so I will start with why YouTube, why these women chose YouTube. They chose YouTube because YouTube, it is a replacement of television, because of the long format that they have on YouTube. And also being able to be producers and directors on YouTube, which is something that wouldn't ordinarily happen on mainstream, where they would be commissioned for a talk show, where they would have to present it, produce it, and package it the way that they want to. So YouTube was the best alternative for them to use because of the long format it provides, and also just the autonomy that it has for the woman. So that's why they went for that. It would be also interesting to find talk shows in other social media sites. Like we are asking to say, why can't we have that on X? Why can't we have that on other social media platforms? And we also have to think around the idea of format, because a talk show is quite lengthy, from 30 minutes going up. So with other social media platforms, I'm not too sure if it is palatable for that to happen, but maybe there is an option like live TV or something of that effect. But I think they chose this because of the original format of TV shows, that they are longer, and there's just a lot of production that takes place, and that's why they chose YouTube. And I would also just say to others who are in the chat that we can also start interrogating other platforms and see what kind of content are they producing in terms of, or rather where talk shows are concerned. And then the idea of why is YouTube a space? Why do we consider it a space? So it is a space because it is a community of people who share who have a common interest, right? What they're there to do is to learn with amongst each other, right, about different topics. And also they are there to actually have conversations, because that's where you see in the comment section, like the engagement, because it is a community, because we have one comment, and in that comment, there's also a response, a reply to that comment. So that just gives you a sense of the community that is there. So they've coined it e-sisterhood. So E is in the internet, so sisterhood that we have. So e-sisterhood is being created on this site, where people are able to laugh, where people are able to engage with each other, to cry, to vent, to socialize. It's just a community. That's why it's a site, because so many emotions take place just on that channel, because you feel like you know these people as you are reading these comments. This is how you're feeling, because sometimes it even say, I read the comments first before I watch the video. So that tells you the level of community that is taking place, where sometimes others would watch the video and and view the comments later. So it is a site because they're engaging one another, and they're giving feedback on the content, and they're also giving feedback to each other based on what they're saying, because even in that comment there's a reply and another reply to that one. So even the replies, it could be something from 6 weeks ago, and then someone watches it today and they respond next year, and then someone will see it a year later, respond again. So it's an ongoing conversation. It is a site, it is a community. So even with the other channels, even though they haven't posted anything this year, especially Moments with Mountsy, Convos and Cocktails, as well as Kosi, all three channels, they haven't posted anything this year, but the engagement is still taking place even now. So that's why it's a site. It is a community. People can always go back and then have the sense of community and empowerment that they are actually.
Oh, it looks like I think we have lost Dudu again. But let me thank you for attending and also lasting to the very end. Hopefully, maybe we are going to get Dudu back. But I just want to say, if you are interested in receiving our invitations for the mailing list, for our upcoming seminars. Of course, we are only left with 2 this semester, but if you would like to receive these invitations, you can share your email, and we'll gladly invite you for our future seminars. Let's see, maybe if Dudu is able to come back, but I think we are just left with a few minutes. We have exceeded our time today, but of course that speaks to the interesting nature of the presentation and how important it is and engaging. So thank you very much for engaging. It's something that we really appreciate. Thank you very much. We might not be able to get Dudu back, so thank you very much for attending, and do enjoy the rest of your day. This week we do have a couple of seminars. The other one is on Friday. So for those that are on our mailing list, you would see the invitation for the Friday session on Chinese and China labor relations. Then we have the last one next week. So thank you very much for joining us. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, to this, let me try to admit her. She's coming back, but I think we're just left with a few minutes. before we call it a day?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for my connectivity.
Thank you very much. Yes, Dudu, I think I'll just maybe give you 5 minutes or 3 minutes to, if you have any last reflections. But I just wanted to add maybe my last my last view, which is a general question. That I think you highlighted the very important point that young women are using these digital spaces and platforms to sort of reclaim visibility and voice, especially on YouTube. And I think there's so many people who talk about the brutality of the online space and the virtual space. So how are these women negotiating all these kind of brutality that you sometimes maybe find online? They might be vulnerable to some new kind of forms of digital violence. It could be online harassment, trolling, or doxing. Are there any cases like this? And how do these young women negotiate or even resist these kind of threats to feminist self-empowerment through YouTube?
Okay. I'll just try answer just the last part. So I was asked about the male gaze in terms of the response, the female gaze that we're getting on our screens, to say that we're seeing women enjoying this type of content. So is it really a rejection of the male gaze, or are they more accepting to it? And for me, the answer is, if the woman intentionally consents to be a part of the male gaze, then absolutely. But if not, then it's a different story. If you're being the one that is given the script, you are the one that is being asked to act in a particular way, then there is no actually liberty when it comes to that, right? So you think about socialization, where women have been socialized that this is how we're supposed to look like, this is how we're supposed to be dressed. And if you genuinely believe in that, and you feel that you're not exploited, you feel that you genuinely want to look this way, you consented to it, you want it, nobody suggested it for you, then it's all good. Think of female DJs right now, where the trend is they're wearing thongs or wearing less clothes. And if it's the producer or your manager that said you should wear that, then of course it's perpetuating the very sexist ideologies that have been in place. But if the woman is intentionally saying, I'm embracing my beautiful body, I want to dress like this, then that is something that is agreed upon by you, right? So that's where you actually see the difference between the two. When you are being coerced, right, versus when you are the one who's saying, I'm empowered fully and I understand what I'm doing and I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for pleasure of the other, but it is for me, then we can start having conversations around that. But if you're still being given a script to act a particular way, you don't own a media house, you're still being told, then it's a different ball game altogether. So the female gaze, you'll see it in the way it is in the way it provides grace to the male and female body, and the way in which it's celebrated. Like I made an example of having these a sex expert on screen, where they'll actually help with the scene to ensure that there is integrity and dignity with all the cast members. And when it comes to cyber trolling, also just the abuse that Black women encounter in the digital space, they used soft powers such as blocking the comments on YouTube, for example. If it's violating the community, you can block the comment or block the person from engaging. So those are soft powers, really. It's not something that is regulated that can be done. So those are just the little soft powers that can be used at the moment. But we do need longevity and holistic ways or strategies to ensure that we don't really have these deep fakes, cyberbullying online. And also it is a representation of the offline world, because bullying is taking place. A lot of harassment is taking place, and also just South Africa being the capital of rape, we see it being perpetuated on social media, and the way in which people are engaging. So the only thing we have at the moment is the soft power by blocking, muting people who are transmitting that kind of vomit into the social space. But essentially, we do need a long-term solution online and offline when it comes to cyberbullying and any kind of harassment.
All right. Thank you very much, Dudu, for this very interesting talk. Quite engaging. I know there are so many people that had some comments and questions that might not have been able to share them. But yeah, this is quite interesting, and I think you could see from the engagement and the time that we have spent engaging and having this conversation, it shows how interesting and how important this work that you are doing is. So let me take this opportunity to thank you thank you for sharing your work with us, and we'll definitely invite you again in the future to share more interesting insights from the work that you are doing, which is extremely important. And actually, I do have a couple of my students that are working on something that's closely related to this. So I think this is very important for us and also for the students here at SPU. So thank you very much, Dudu, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. And I'm currently writing something on fandoms and Big Brother, so we can have a chat again next time.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
And
thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And those that would want to join our mailing list, you can share your email, and then we'll gladly invite you for our upcoming seminars. We only have 2 left for this semester. So you can share your contacts. Thank you very much, everyone, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
You'll share the recordings, hey?
Yes.
Okay, happiness.
Thanks, Dudu.
Thank you.